When I was a kid, I remember my father renovating at home. Something would go wrong, a tool would slip or a screw that wouldn't catch. And then it came out, Perkele. But not in the casual version, not in the everyday one. It's stretched. More like Perkele. And you would hear it in the way he said it. The longer the R, the more serious it was. And it wasn't just about frustration. It was about force. And as a kid, you don't really analyze this stuff. But you can feel it rather. There was something in that particular word, Perkele, something heavier than just anger. Most people think that Perkele is just a Finnish swear word. But what if it isn't? What if something we inherited is included in that very word or expression without understanding what it really is today? And there's a important thing to be stated here. So there is a difference between modern language and older language in the sense that today words are tools for our convenience, for communication. They are efficient and they are also replaceable. But historically, words carried weight, a bigger meaning, if you will. And they weren't just used, they were invoked. And some words you didn't say lightly or plainly. Perkele may have been one of those words, and most likely it still is. If we look in the book Kalevala, you have Väinämöinen, the godlike deity, if you will. And he is a bit different compared to the Norse mythology because he doesn't dominate the world or the realms with force. Rather, he sings. And his songs are not just stories. They do something. I've talked about this before. They bind, they shape reality in itself, and they carry consequence. When he sings, something happens. It's the animistic worldview all over again. And what matters isn't just what is said. It's how it's said. And whether you know what you're doing with your words. And if we step back for a second, not just Finland, not just one word. If we look at a wider pattern here, in Finnish tradition, you have Ukko, the god of the sky, of thunder and order. A bit similar to the Norse mythology and Thor. But if we move across the Baltic, you will find Perkunas. And further out you will find Perun. Different names, different languages, but all the same pattern. Thunder, force, and authority. And Perkele seems to sit quite close to that pattern. Not clearly, but it's not randomly either. And think back to that moment again. Something hits their hand, just like in the case of my father. Instead of something neutral, they reach for Perkele. Why that word? Because instinctively, people reach for the strongest word they have. It's human nature. Something happens and you have your short list of strong words that can express your feelings at that particular moment. And sometimes these strong words are also the oldest ones. And if we look at as time progressed, something shifted in the explanation for language. A new system entered the Rome of the North, and that was Christianity. And with Christianity, it came a restructuring of the meaning of the word. Old gods, they don't disappear, like I've talked about many times, but they are redefined. And sometimes they're even demonized. So what happened to the expression of Perkele? It didn't vanish, but it falls from something sacred, something forbidden, and something profane. It actually started to translate to the black or the devil himself. And if we look even further back in time, in Mythologia Fennica, Perkele is also described as the devil, because the Mythologia Fennica was written by Kristfrid Ganander, which had a strong Christian bias, we could say. And Perkele is in Mythologia Fennica described as the devil himself, connected to darkness, to fire, and to something destructive, a destructive power, so to speak. But at the same time, it's loosely tied to figures like Loki from Norse mythology, and even older forces than that. And I think that tells you something. You're not looking at a clear system anymore. You're looking at that something that has already started to break apart, where gods become devils and meanings overlap and structure collapse into fragments. But something is still remaining. Not the definitions, but how the word is spoken. That stretched R that I referenced in the beginning. The intensity of the word itself. And maybe most importantly, the tone in which it's uttered in. It's almost like the word itself still carries weight. And maybe that's not accidental, because in the older worldview, words weren't neutral. Sorry about that. They did something. And when someone says Perkele with force, not just describing frustration, it's closer to something being released. That something, rather than something being explained, it's more of a emotion, so to speak. And if we zoom out for a while, this isn't really about one word. It's about the pattern, showing that when a system breaks, it rarely disappears cleanly. It leaves fragments in time, like breadcrumbs in a story. And we inherit these fragments. without a structure that gave them meaning from the beginning. So maybe Perkele is not only a word. Maybe it's an echo of thunder, of sky, of something that stood above us for the longest of times. And every time it's spoken, even casually, something of that still remains. Kiitos paljon. Thank you for watching. And please consider subscribing and let me know what you think. And until next time, Tyrdom out.